Welcome to The Art of Growth. This is Jim Zartman, and for the next few weeks, we're going to revisit a series we did on relationships because it's in the flow of this connection series we're doing. If you're newer, you probably haven't heard of this, and if you have been listening for a while, you probably forgot about it. But we want to jump into this series where pre-COVID, often 6 people were piled into my little 8x12 studio here while Joel interviewed them on relationship, and I was producer recording and often sitting on the floor moving a mic between people to interview these different panels about what it's like for them in relationships. And we thought this would be a great time to look at that again. So if you are new here, please check out our website, theartofgrowth.org, and sign up for our newsletter, which keeps you up to date with everything that's happening here, including our upcoming group coaching on connection. And it's the best place to reach out to us about the trainings we do for teams and companies as well. But for now, let's jump in with our Type 2 panel talking about relationships.
So the Enneagram has 9 types and 3 triads. And these are sort of 3 centers of intelligence, 3 preferences of how we go about processing the world around us. The heart triad are people that process through the heart center, the emotional center. They are very concerned about, how do you see me? And am I, particularly the 2 panel, am I being welcomed into relationship really with you through being helpful to you? This is the 2 panel, which I really thoroughly enjoyed because, once again, I learned so much just by listening to them talk about themselves. Again, the Enneagram, one of the gifts the Enneagram offers is it's self-reporting. I don't want to be the one describing all the types all the time, because it's filtered through my lens, my type. And here you get not only their language, but you get their energy. You feel them. You feel their heart coming through. And that is one of the wonderful things about being able to sit back and realize people in the world are different than me. And if you're a type 2 out there, you're going to listen to this panel and say, wow, those are my people. That's how I see the world. That's how I process things around me. And it normalizes that. It normalizes you. And I love that about the Enneagram, is that so many of us feel like we're aliens, like there's something maybe different about us. The world around us is weird. And this gives a sense of normalizing you and a place for you to feel like you're heard, understood, and there's grace for your type.
But there's other people who are going to hear it and just be like, these people seem to, with all the panels, these people seem to need something that I don't know how to give.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that is one of the things you run into is I think we recorded the 7 and the 2 on the same day. And I was thinking that some of the things that the 2 is asking for are some of the things that the 7 resist. And so how do we actually learn to meet people where they are when they need very different things from us, very different things than what we would naturally gravitate towards in a relationship, and make space for that.
That's for our next podcast, Jim.
Oh, boy. Oh, man, he's got ideas.
Serious.
He's got ideas,
serious.
folks.
I want to do that. I want to do stuff on how, if a 2 is in relationship with this other type, you're right about asking that question. I think that's precisely the question it seems like everyone's asking these days is, okay, well then how do you do relationship between, say, an 8, in your case, an 8, and your wife is a 9? How do I do relationship as a 7 married to a 6, you know? And so these are very important questions, and we definitely want to get to them. But you're right about that, though. 2s were asking questions or were presenting certain needs that other types would maybe recoil at. Other types would say, geez, I can't do that, and I don't want to do that. And that's true for all of us. You know, as a 7, I know certain types recoil from me. And I think, wow, you know, this so this is important for us because we didn't coach this type. We didn't say, we didn't go in trying to fix anybody or point out areas of growth for the type. What we wanted to do is put in create a space where they could be themselves fully. And I think that's hopefully came through in this panel.
And that's the starting point we all need to come to. We all need to start there. It needs to start with acceptance of the other, of hearing them and really hearing their needs and just trying to sit with them. Because after every one of these panels, I went home kind of shooken up and just feeling like I need to sit with this so that I can better invite closer the people into my life instead of pushing sort of our demands on them, which is like the most natural thing for all of us to do, is to put our expectations on the other. And I know people had expectations for, even for this season and what we would talk about, but we really wanted to stick with this, like provide space and let that energy kind of take over not only the room we're recording in, but to take over the podcast where it's just, let's just look, let's just observe, let's just take it in, let's sit with these people and process them.
I wanted to say one of my fears was that implicit in what we were doing is some sort of expectation that you now have to meet all these needs of all these panels, everything that they've that they've communicated. That this sort of like, oh, let's just all be nice and sit around and sing Kumbaya, or lose ourselves in trying to serve another. This is not the message at all that we wanted to convey, but rather we need to start here, because if we don't start here, there's no way people will feel safe enough to ever expose what's really going on underneath.
Yeah, that's really good. And so we will have some coaching tips for the type 2 at the end of the episode, but we didn't want to do that during it because this is about making space for them. And so I would just ask that you, as you listen to the type 2s, to make space and really receive what they have to say and see them for who they are and the beauty of what they offer. So thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the 2 panel.
All right. Well, welcome to the 2 panel. I'm so happy you guys are here. I'm here with Nancy, M, and Victoria. And why don't you guys tell us a little bit about you?
My name's Nancy. I've been married for 43 years, have 2 grown children. Can't believe it. I've been working with Joel, but now I'm a spiritual director. And I turned 65, and I'm okay with that.
Hi, I'm Em, and very excited to be here. I'm a professor and an assistant professor, so new to this. I'm raising my 4th grade lovely daughter, and I'm just enjoying life as best as I can.
My name is Victoria. I am married to my husband, Jamie, for 13 years now. We have 2 kids. And we have a little farm with goats and chickens. Not entirely sure what I do because I do a lot of different things. I'm a dietitian by profession, so I teach some classes around, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. The type 2s are described in the literature as being helpers. They want to be helpful, needed, wanted, and or loved. And as a way to do this, the 2s tend to read the emotions of those around them and also the needs of those around them, often anticipating them even before they are vocalized or expressed. This often means that 2s can become unaware of their own emotions or their own needs. So that's just a brief description of the type 2s. What would you say about that? Is that true of you? Is there a different way you would express that?
Well, I think the best feeling for a 2 is that we're making a difference helping people. That's the best feeling. And, yes, we're warm, welcoming types, but yet we struggle with conflict. And so that's where I can land. Mm-hmm. And I can probably remember details of your story better than you can if I have an emotional connection with it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely hear more about that, because I'd love to hear more about how that works in terms of how the emotions and the connection to people through the emotions is the way type 2s tend to process the world. So thank you. Yeah.
That really resonates with me. I feel happiest when people are sharing with me and opening up. And I feel honored when someone tells me something that's like deep or even a little heavy, and then allowing them to get it off their chest, but also that they trust me with their information and with their heart. That means the world to me. And I've even had some friends that have said, I feel like I'm just dumping on you. I'm just telling you all this stuff. And I'm like, no, is it helping you? because it's making, I'm happy to be able to be this for you. So that really resonates with me.
Awesome.
I very much agree with that, and have had some experiences recently where I've had really long and deep conversations with friends. And to your point of reading where twos can kind of not realize their own needs or just put their own needs aside, like I so get filled and enjoy being with people in that space of where they need to share or need to me to be with them, to the point where I'll be like, I don't know what was on my calendar today, but everything's off. Like that could be my family, that could be responsibilities, but I'm here for you. So like I can see also how that, can be maybe not to the detriment of your own needs, but we can very quickly put aside everything that we need to do or that we need personally to be there for somebody else.
And that idea of like reading people's emotions is a big thing. I'm always like looking like, are you okay? And I'm always asking people, like, I don't need to know the report about your job, or like, are you okay as a human? Like, that's actually a question I ask a lot of people.
Do you ever notice it in like a third person? Like my husband will be telling me a story about something that happened at work, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know if you realize, but this other person was probably feeling this way. And he's like, well, no, I was in the room. Like, I was like, no, I think I'm feeling better how they were feeling. I don't know if you caught up on like what they were projecting to you, but.
That's great. Yeah. So, I mean, this is really interesting how you're talking about the way you're reading things and what you're looking for, like where your attention goes. And if someone says to you, is reporting just data, information, the facts, it doesn't click for you because you're looking for, you can hear all that. That's stuff that you're interested as well in, but you're also looking for that deeper connection, that what's going on.
I'm also looking for, when they're telling me the data, how do they feel about it?
Right.
Okay, yeah.
Like, oh, at work, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I'm like, how are you managing that? Like, how are you feeling about that? Versus if they're energetic about it, and I'm like, oh, this is great. This seems like it's making you happy. I'm like keyed into how they perceive these like lists of tasks or whatever they're doing.
Right. And paying attention to the tone and the facial expressions and the body language. You're seeing all that at the same time. And seeing if there's a congruency there.
And so, this was just one of the first questions I wanted to ask you guys is, what do you bring to your relationships? I mean, you've already started down that path, which is not surprising given that we're talking about twos here. That's something that even if I were to ask you out of the blue, hey, what do you think you bring to relationships? I wonder how would you respond to that? Something that you're aware of, you're unaware of, or it's something that you have learned over time that this is what you bring to relationships? Maybe talk about that as well. But I'd love to hear what you think you bring to people around you that you care about and that care about you.
I think I can be very quick to be available for people. Like I love getting together with people. I love social situations. And I've noticed sometimes with other people, whether I know their type or not, sometimes it can be difficult to find time in your schedule. Whereas if somebody is coming to me and saying like, hey, can we get together for coffee? Or, can we meet up for something? I will move heaven and earth to like make time for them. So yeah, just being available, being a good listener.
One thing I bring is I affirm people a lot when they're going through really challenging things. I do this balance between like witnessing it and saying like, that is hard, or I don't want to minimize it and just say, oh, you'll get over it. It's fine, because everything's not fine. But listening, acknowledging it's hard, and then expressing that I believe in them. And, I offer any support that I can, whether it's if you want to talk, my phone is on, or, I have friends that are like writing things, and I'm like, if you send it to me, I'll read it. I'll give you comments. We can talk about it. Whatever you need, like what's going to help you be able to move past this difficulty that you're in. And so some friends never take me up on that, but they know they could, and I really will do it. And I will ignore other things. I will ignore other things to read my friend's paper, because it's going to help them, not just with the paper, but like to have someone believing in them.
Right. And I think you're talking about the potential. I love encouraging the potential in people and almost being their cheerleader along the way to see them excel. We're very generous of our time, very generous, especially if we see that it makes a difference, is that it matters to us. And we become very present to this person. And again, forgetting all else happening in there right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is so beautiful. One of the incredible gifts that twos do bring to relationships is that you guys do care and you're available. So let's talk about, what do you need? And this is the harder question. What do you need from your relationships?
It got really quiet.
I know. It's hard. I find it hard to talk about that, to say it. I don't know why. Why is that hard?
Why is that hard?
You can do
it. She's doing the two thing.
We hear you.
We hear you.
We see you.
I've realized through self-examination, I need people to recognize that how I help them is valuable. So even if they don't have capacity to reciprocate exactly, if they can recognize and tell me, I see what you're doing. You're doing this and this, and that's helping me so much. Mm-hmm. I need to hear that. That if I don't hear that, then I'm trying to figure out, is this helping? Do they appreciate me? And I also I don't need it to be direct reciprocation, but if I am making myself available, I will stick with it for a long time. But if people are kind of not responsive, even if they're really enthusiastic, I have some friends that are really enthusiastic when I'm around them, but then they don't make any effort to stay connected. That hurts me. Mm-hmm. So I have to be careful of that. And that's actually an awareness that has come with being aware of my two-ness. To be this is how I can be healthier, because otherwise I would just pour into people who are not invested in me, and then it hurts. It feels like
because then
rejection.
It feels like you feel used.
Well,
for what you do.
Even I just feel they don't see that I'm am I helping them or not? Am I helping them? I can't tell. They're not telling me.
So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that too, because there's a measure at which there is a desire for reciprocity. How am I doing? How do you see what I'm doing is either helpful or not helpful? And you've had to learn how to articulate that. Here are my needs as well. That's much more of a challenge. What would you say about that, Nancy, in terms of having to vocalize even your needs? Because you've grown quite a bit in that space.
Yeah. Well, I think for me is see me, enter into my world, and ask me questions. Even though I might turn it around and pretty soon I'll be listening to you again, because
you'll turn it back on us,
I'll turn it back on you because it's just part of our nature to do that. But it's really, really hard to be able to say, to be able to have those needs and to be able to be self-aware of them and to know, even with time constraints, we said we'll give all the time in the world to this person, but finding out that it's to the detriment of us, detriment of me. And so I need to pay attention to that. I thought of you thinking, when I saw you yesterday coming up here, I should have made them the almond cake you like. And I go,
you should have.
I should have. But I had to evaluate, do I have the time? And I didn't at that moment. And I go, well, there'll be another time, but he'll just have to embrace me without me bringing anything tangible that will make you happy.
Yeah, that's huge, Nancy. That's huge. And I've seen you grow in that way. So this is what's really wonderful is that you become, as a two, the gift is not just what you do, but your presence in relationship with other people. And the world around you also becoming more aware of how can we make sure that you understand that you know that you're seen and loved, and that your presence is all that is needed in this moment. And you were very present yesterday, and it was a very enjoyable engagement. It's that's remarkable.
Right, and those connections fill us up.
Yeah,
those connections, you walk away and go, "Oh, that was great." I'm good for a while.
I'm going to press this just a little bit further. What are other things that you feel like you need? So you've mentioned things like being seen, a little bit of reciprocity in the sense of give me feedback on how I'm doing. What else?
It's funny. I was thinking about this question, and it is really hard to answer because I don't like talking about my needs because it feels like an imposition on other people, even though I would never, if somebody else was expressing those needs to me, never feel like they were an imposition on me. But for some reason, expressing them to other people feels like, oh, I don't want to put that burden on you. More of a desire, I really desire quality time and depth in relationships. Surfacey things feel very draining to me. I don't want to say a waste of time, but if I'm here with you, I want to dive deep. And so it's been interesting to find out that not everyone wants to dive deep all the time. An actual tangible need, I feel in relationships at least that I'm close with, I need not just the freedom to say no, but the feedback that it's okay to say no to things. As I'm pouring myself into other people, I don't necessarily need feedback directly from them that this is helping me, but I have found those relationships that are steady and stable in my life that I get that feedback from them. My husband, for example, if I'm, in a point in my life where I'm giving all around, I can come home and my husband is a rock of, reassuring me and reaffirming me that, the things that I'm doing are good and worth my time. So it's been helpful to have that one person that I can come back to and kind of ground me so that I'm not looking for it from everyone else.
That's huge.
Well, another thing is we all tend to, want to critique or receive, we don't want to receive criticism, but I think for it too, you need, the gentleness helps. If you're using this strong voice or this, really intense, I hear nothing else. I hear nothing else. And so I can't be open at that moment because I'm looking at, am I going to shut down? Am I going to run away? How am I going to change this warm, the warm feeling I have just goes down to neutral because I'm still processing your tone of voice. I'm processing the intensity, and it really affects me. And so that criticism, I'm growing in that criticism, but just it affects me.
Yeah.
I think I need to know that there is something about people friends and loved ones explicitly stating the things that are okay or that you are wonderful just how you are. I love you how you are. And that if you can't do this, the thing about if somebody needs me, I will shift. But sometimes people say, but if you can't do it, it is okay. I want to give you permission. You don't have to do this. I know that you have this and this and this. That actually helps me. Otherwise, I feel this sense of but if I don't do it, who's going to do it? Are they going to be okay? They don't have anybody else to do this. But if they say, I'm just telling you this because I want you to know, but I don't want you to feel like you have to do something. That actually helps me to keep things in check a little bit more. Although I probably would still try.
But I think with that too is I get the other part of it, people saying, well, you're too busy. And I hate that because I want, I'll move heaven and earth to be available if that person needs me. And I don't want to be seen as too busy not to have time.
I have loved ones who say that. They're you're busy, so I don't call you. Yeah. And I'm always call me. If I can't answer, then I won't answer, but I will follow up. But please don't self-censor. Because seeing that outreach, it's little things the people that call me on my birthday or text me on my birthday instead of a Facebook message. That is meaningful to me for some reason. That you felt when I look at the list of who does, I'm those are kind of but that's silly kind of because people are interacting in all kinds of ways. But I read things into it when they aren't even there. But that's meaningful. It's more personal.
Well, and I wonder it's because your attention is always going out. You type 2s are always going out to the world around you, and you really deeply care about people. And your attention is always on these folks. So we in the Enneagram speak, they call that other referencing. So your attention goes out towards other people, whereas other types, their attention doesn't. So that's helpful for folks to understand that for you, the little things of you remembered my birthday, you reached out to me. I'm not always having to reach out to you. You actually did something for me is huge. And for others, it would never cross their minds that doesn't mean that they don't like you. It just means that their attention is not other referencing. Their attention is more self-referencing. And so it's really, really good to hear you guys say what's happening and how important those things are to you.
I've also had some friends who I'm like, I really love this friend, but they do not have capacity to do those little things like call me or text me now and then, and they know, I even had one friend who like kind of apologized, like, I'm sorry I haven't been there, but I was like, but then they still weren't there. So I was like, whoa, I love you. You feel like family, but what do I do with that? You're not making any effort into our friendship. I know you really do love me, but that's hard because I would take your call anytime. I will come visit you. I will do these things. And I have done those things, but then it's weird to have somebody like right in front of you. It feels like the enthusiasm is there, but then it's like when you're not there, they just forget. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like, even if that's not true. And I that's hard for me to sustain that. I have gotten to a place where I withdraw from that because it hurts.
Yeah. I can identify with that, feeling like you're forgotten. And I think we spend a lot of time celebrating people, celebrating milestones, celebrating dates, or remembering a loss that they had and connecting with them on that anniversary date. I find for me, just saying happy birthday is almost like celebrating me at that moment. And so I love birthdays, and I tend to make, I think how I've grown is I tend to do some things that I really want to do on my birthday because it's celebrating me and, that I'm a person.
Yeah, I was just, kind of listening to your, how different people will want to be there for you. And I'm finding this kind of like weird season of my life where I'm kind of overloaded and feel like I have the desire to make all those connection points. And I'm finding like a lack of capacity to do that. I feel tremendously drained by my not being able to do them, even though I'm not actually doing them. I'm like, have a little bit of insomnia and like, I feel like, oh my goodness, this person they must think I'm not caring. I'm worried about all these relationships that I'm not like maintaining well as much as I would like to. And even though I'm not putting the time into maintaining them, like the mental stress is there because I feel such a burden to, make all those phone calls and the emails and the sending the cards, but I'm like not at a place in my life right now where I have the bandwidth to do it all. So yeah, just kind of mulling over kind of the flip side of that, like being on the other side and wanting to make all those connections and not being able to do it is also exhausting.
And try not to beat yourself up with it.
And you'd almost want maybe the world around you to say, we understand. And that does not mean any loss of connection for us, and that you're loved as you are and it's fine. It's the stage of life you're at this moment. It won't take it away because you twos are designed really to offer the world help and to serve them. But sometimes it comes with that excess of like, I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. I need to maintain this relationship. It's my duty. It's my responsibility to maintain these relationships. Otherwise, what will happen?
And something you guys each said just really popped out at me this time. Explain it, because it seems like these connections make me have a lot more energy. My energy goes up. And then this stress of needing to make the connections, not being able to, or whatever the case may be in there, it's like my energy then goes down. It's like your entire energetic life rides the wave of relationship.
Yeah, being in a space where I am with people connected, talking about their real lives and their hearts, even struggles, gives me energy. I feel stronger and happier, and like I was able to listen, and that took a burden off of someone. And I don't feel it as a burden. I just feel like trusted, and it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel honored. I feel honored. Like you trusted me you came to me when you had this issue. Like, definitely. Where when I feel it is tangential, I'm just kind of like, oh, hey, how's your work? Or, oh, yeah, the kids are fine, this and that.
Do you ever feel like small talk exhausts you?
Yeah, I don't. I was at a thing recently where we were supposed to be meeting some new people, and some of my colleagues were going around table to table. Like, they were going for broad exposure, and I just sat at one table, and I just want to talk to, like, one group of people, and I want to know about you. Where are you from? What's happening? I'm finding out about everybody at the table. And that made me feel happy. Mm-hmm. And maybe that made those people feel heard, or I hope.
That's funny.
Like, oh,
that's what you were
that
going
person
for.
just came, and I wasn't even going for that. I just have no desire to be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I have to go. And then they just see me walk over to some other table. I don't like that. I don't know, that feels weird.
Yeah. I like to go deep. That gives me the best energy. And I could go for quite a while on that energy. It's a high, to be honest with you, where it's just this surface talking, or just going to a party and just doing the little chatting is wearisome. It's tiring. And it feels like I can't see that person. That person, is void in front of me unless we go down deeper. Because I see things in them, but I can't connect with them. And so that connection really for me or for us, it comes with sharing, hearing deep thoughts and how they're really doing.
And it makes
what's
me
going
wonder,
on in their life.
It makes me wonder if the person's being guarded on purpose. Like, do they not want to? I don't get, like, people not telling people things.
Don't you want to bare your entire soul for everyone?
That's right.
I'll tell someone my deepest things within 1 minute.
Yeah.
Even. I've had instances where I told people really heavy things within 1 minute. And I guess depending on their type, they were just like, oh.
Was that too much?
I can't handle this.
Yeah,
don't you
if we
know
could
everything?
ask how we are, we want to go down, and they're just wanting to use it as a salutation.
Well, that's a very interesting. This is so fascinating because you're giving us a window into how you guys really operate and think and what you're looking for. I keep learning every time I do this. I keep learning more. So there are types that would say, I like to go deep. They are not in your center of intelligence, meaning the heart center. There are head centers that would say, we love to go deep. We can't stand superficial talk. And there are body centers that say the same thing. Well, I don't like small talk. We like to get deep, right? If I had the three of you guys together, like these three different groups together, my guess would be none of you would be satisfied, because the depth means something very different for a body type and a head type than it does for a heart type. So what does deep mean for you?
Vulnerability. And having someone be vulnerable with me feels, I think you used the word a couple times, like an honor. Like, it feels incredibly, I don't want to say like reassuring of myself, but it feels like I'm trustworthy. Like, you trusted me with that. Like, thank you for letting me be here for you.
And real, like, not the projection, the outward projection of power, success, oh, things are going great. But like, and not that I want there to be something that's not good, but I don't want to have, I've had interactions with people where they were asking me all these questions and I'm talking or whatever. And then they're like, I'm like, but what about you? And then they drop a bombshell. And I'm like, that is the lead story. Like, why are we talking about all these other random things that we could have talked about that later?
They buried the lead,
They buried the lead. I'm like, that's the news of the day. I want the news of the day. I want to know, like, when you're sitting there with yourself, what is on your mind? Like, what are you worried about? And it could be small things or big things, but I want to know what's really on your mind, not the surface level, not the report of, work is like this and family is like this, just one-liners, like what's really going on. Or I want to know, last time I talked to you, you were talking about this. Like, how has that been going? What have you been doing? I want to know the real story. And if people are not willing to be vulnerable, I try to be sensitive. Like, everybody doesn't want to, but it works best for me if people are vulnerable. Because then we just can, I feel like there's a constraint. There's a weird constraint when people are they're holding their cards back. And I can tell that they're doing it usually.
Yes.
Well, and that's what feels superficial to you, is that you are seeing something, and whether they see it or not, you're seeing it. And so you said that earlier, it can feel like they're holding back. Why aren't they talking about this thing that I'm picking up on?
And why won't you tell me? Like, is it that you don't trust me? Like, what, did I do something? Are you mad? Like, I don't know.
Okay.
Or you just, you don't want to have that with me. Okay, I have to just accept that. But then why not?
Yeah.
And I think connecting on that emotional level, the empathy that we have, that it's a gift when people share from their heart and share. It's not, we don't want to hear you because of just curiosity. We want to make that meaningful connection to where you're really at and see that realness and the real stories that come in.
So we're picking up on a lot of things here. This is really, we've gone deep, speaking of deep, right?
That's what we like.
Yeah. I mean, so you're talking deep in several different ways, I think. One is the emotional depth. Like, can I hear about how you're being impacted by your own story and by what's happening in your life? And can we also have this depth of connection between us, that you trust me, that you're going to share your story with me? So that feels deep to you guys when you're connecting at that space, and you feel honored by that. Like, they care, they trust me, they want to share this with me. So I'm hearing that in depth. Anything else that you would add to what is deep? Is that?
Well, I also want to layer on, I don't go around saying, I want somebody to tell me their tragic story or something like that. It's just when that happens, it's rewarding. Like, I don't want it to be like, I'm seeking out people who need, who have hard things and tell me them. It's just the combination of the person trusting me. And then I have like many friends that when they do tell me, they're like one friend I was talking to recently told me something, and I was like, you hadn't told anybody that before, had you? And they said, no. And I was like, does it help to just say it out loud? And they said it did. And they know they can say those things out loud to me in confidence, and it helps them. And I'm happy to help them. It's like the joy of my life to be able to help them. And as an extra reward, it's like, and they trusted me, or they told me first. It sounds selfish saying it. I feel like my skin is like, it feels like selfish to say, oh, and they told me and they came to me, because then I'm saying me so much. It feels weird. But in honesty, I think it does feel like that.
And that's okay. This is definitely not one of these spaces where we're going to talk about low side, high side of the two. This is wonderful that you're opening up in this way. And it's a tough question for type 2s to respond to. And you guys have responded to it, vulnerably, honestly, all the things you're seeking out in relationships, you've done that. And that's remarkable. So I'd like to bounce to this next question, which is another toughie, and that has to do with, what do others find confusing about you? I'm sure nothing, but I just figured I'd ask.
Well, I have some friends who have explicitly told me they are confused that them telling me their hard and tough things and talking about themselves on end is energetic for me, or like that I am welcome that. They're confused by that. That, I don't know.
What do you make of it? I mean, confused in what way?
Like, why would someone want a person to tell them all their hard things and not listen to the not reciprocate right then? Or like, they just were confused. Like, I feel like I'm just dumping on you and telling you all this stuff. And like, I appreciate you. It's helping me so much. But like, why?
Confused that you actually are okay with it.
Oh, no, yeah. Like,
yeah.
Do you want to talk again later this week? Like, call me anytime. Let's talk again soon. I want to know what's going on. That's confusing for some people. People have said that.
I think times when there's conflict can be confusing, because I hate conflict so much. So if there is something that I need to address with someone, or someone needs to address with me, I find myself clarifying and re-clarifying and couching everything I say in a way that won't offend, or in a way that will make the other person feel heard, and maybe not necessarily what I need to say. So when there's conflict, it's hard for me to get out what I need to say in a clear manner. Yeah.
Because I think we want to be understood.
Right.
We'll try to be diplomatic as well.
diplomatic.
And so you miss the point of what we're trying to say. But the other part of it is we feel things intensely inside. We may have this calm exterior, but we feel very intense inside. And if I remember some situations where I'm trying to push back against, an opinion and try to state my opinion. And if I don't feel understood at that moment, because I want you to make that emotional connection, then I get frustrated. I'm exhausted because I'm trying to push ahead and trying to state my opinion and to disagree with somebody without trying to hurt their feelings. But I'm at the same time getting very flustered. And so the intensity in me comes out, and then you don't want the tears to come. You try to... You get so mad if the tear comes into your eye at that point because you're going, because it feels self-defeating. And so that's where I find is the emotional, the intensity I feel. You may not feel that from me. You just feel like, what is she really saying? What is she going, what is she trying to...
Yeah.
I was just going to say, do you guys both relate to that? Because it sounds pretty specific. Would you nuance that in a different way for you?
I resonate with a lot of that.
I was thinking about, what do I think about conflict? And when you say I avoid conflict, because both of you have said that, I was like, do I avoid conflict? But then I realized I do, but I don't have I'm avoiding conflict. I just do all these things to mitigate it so it doesn't come to a abrasive moment, even practicing what I will say in advance.
Oh my goodness,
or avoiding people.
Yes.
So you echo with that, Victoria, so much. Yeah.
I
always
written
have
things down,
yes.
like if it's a really tough, and then I remember I had to meet with someone who was kind of like a boss, and I was like, I didn't want to work with them anymore. And I actually wrote down, there were heart reasons why I could not work with them anymore, but I came up with head reasons, maybe like pragmatic reasons, and I had to write them down and rehearse what I would say for that conversation.
Yeah. Conversation rehearsing a lot.
Because I did not want to have an emotional interaction with that person because they were not trustworthy in that way. But I guess I do avoid conflict. I want harmony. I want everybody to feel good and strong. I don't want people to feel hurt. And I don't want to feel like that, but I don't want to see people hurting each other. And I want to feel like, I want to know we're okay, like with people I have a relationship with. Like, I don't want to feel like, I would ask people, are you mad at me? Like, if I read the signals and then they're being evasive, are you mad at me? Are you okay? Are we okay? Did I do something? And I want to be able to fix it.
That is really hard. Like, I've had a couple situations where I've not known if the other person was okay, and for whatever reason we hadn't seen each other or hadn't been able to connect. Like, I won't be able to sleep for until I make sure that they're okay. And sometimes they're like, what are you talking about? Like, we're fine. I'm like, okay, because I haven't been sleeping for 4 days. So I'm glad we're fine.
I can relate to that. That if somebody's mad at me, I'm like, I can't take it. What did I do? How do I fix this? I want to fix it.
Because it's on you again to fix it. You feel it's your responsibility.
Because we don't know what we did.
It sounds like you're taking a whole lot of, you don't know what you did, but it sounds like you're taking a whole lot more responsibility, or at least it appears that way to me. I don't know if you've discerned that in your relationships where you're taking a whole lot more on you. Are we okay? Is everything fine? Did I do something? And then you discover, we're fine. It's not been a problem for me. Have you discerned that too, or is that just sort of my perspective on it?
Yeah, I'm just really worried that we're not okay. And usually we are, but sometimes we aren't. And I'm like, I need to know that. How can you not tell me? This is the most important thing. And there are things I can do. That's what I always wanted. I'm like, but I could do something. I could make this be better. I could make effort. Just knowing the information can help.
But we will go the extra mile.
Oh yeah, I don't mind taking on more of the lift to get things going.
Right.
Yeah.
But connection with relationship matters to us, matters to me. And so we go the extra mile to check it out. But we can, perception-wise, we feel that we analyze. So we'll analyze a conversation that maybe that's the conversation that was difficult in that it feels like that separation. And so we want to be connected again. And so if that person appears to be distant from us, it's almost our mission to want to be connected again. And we'll rehearse. I'll not sleep. I'll just remunerate in my mind what happened, kind of go over the details, just to figure it out, because you want to figure it out so you can fix it.
I have to admit, though, through some of doing this work, thinking about the Enneagram, thinking about my health and what's going to make me be stronger, which is hard to even say that. Why is that hard to just say? I was thinking about myself and like what I need to do for myself. I'm like, okay. But I did have some relationships that for a year, I did invest in, but then at some point I said, I shouldn't invest in this.
Right.
But I still think about it all the time. I'm like, I wish, I don't think it's healthy for me to keep interacting with this person because it's making me feel bad. And the one connection I'm thinking about in particular is where that was like this energy when we're in person, but then not making any effort at all. And then even like some unwillingness to hear my truth. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if you aren't willing to hear my truth and you don't believe my truth when I share it with you, and you're not curious about that and going deep, then I think I have to I think I have to step back. But I didn't have a moment where I said, I'm stepping back from, I'll just let nature take its course. And I love the people involved. But like I said, just going to let nature take its course. That was actually really hard. And without awareness of my like being a 2 and kind of thinking through what's healthy, I don't think I would have done that. I think I probably would have just kept trying and then kind of feeling hurt. Possibly.
Yeah. That's excellent. What else is confusing in your relationships, in your communication with people?
Everybody doesn't tell the truth. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's confusing. Sometimes people are deceptive on purpose, or they're hiding and they don't want to be seen for their truth. They're projecting. There's all these other things. I think that leads to a lot of confusion when I put a lot of value into what people say. Like if you say these things and do these things, I remember them. Where at the same time, I'm also forgiving and I'm willing to release them. But there's certain things people do and say that are harder for me to let go of. And it's when there's a mismatch, when people are deceptive or I'm not deceptive. I'm terrible at lying. I don't even try.
Well, maybe if I can suggest a couple things that are about the type that you guys can respond to. And feel free to say, this doesn't describe me, because this is one of the wonderful things about the Enneagram is that it doesn't put us in a box. It's open to our own expression of the type. So each one of you are very different type 2s. In terms of helping and serving the world around you, how does that sometimes become confusing to those you love and to those who are in a relationship with you?
I feel like when my husband has come along with me quite a bit as I'm like on a mission to help everyone that needs any sort of help. And he is tremendously helpful. Looking at other people who aren't helping, I have to check myself a little bit, because sometimes I see that as like, they're not expressing love towards people. How come everyone isn't helping with the same sort of exuberance that I'm helping? And I can sometimes translate that as they don't care, when maybe some other people are just in a healthier place of not needing to feel like they need to help every single person out there. Like they know that that's not their place to help in a certain situation, where I'm like, I need all the volunteers. I need I'm a volunteer coordinator as well. So it's when I don't see everyone dropping everything in their life to run and help, I can sometimes take that, not personally, but be like, why aren't you helping this person over here? Why aren't you helping in this situation? And I can, I don't know, have some sort of prejudice against them and their motives. So I have to check myself.
As a clarifying question, do you mean that we experience confusion or that other people are confused by what we do?
This is what I was about to pick up on is there's the two sides, which is wonderful because it surprised me. I didn't expect that. And I think that's fantastic. You're expressing confusion as to how you're confused about the world around you. So that's very interesting too. I think that's awesome. But then there's also the other part, which is how do you come across as confusing, maybe is a better way of saying it. How do you come across as confusing to the world around you? Or as they might perceive your help one way and you're thinking of it in a different way. So think about that in terms of help and your desire to connect with people, the responsibility you feel you carry in helping people. So any of that and all of that is all welcomed. One
small point of confusion is the putting out so much energy. There are a lot of people that just do not. They have told me I guess this is confusion. Like I worked in a job for a lot of years where I was like listening to people all the time and like a lot of troubles and things like that. And that was energizing, as we talked about before. But then they'd say, I could never do that job, that I would just be exhausted. I don't get how you can just keep listening and talking and having and hosting and doing all this. That is like, I can do that. I wouldn't be able to. That's one thing that I've heard others express.
Sure.
I think for me is sometimes I can come across as having it all together, and that I don't need anything.
You don't have any needs.
I don't have any needs because I can just work. We are good at what we do in many different things, and so we can do things well, and we can go across that way.
And you genuinely don't have a ton of needs,
right?
That you're aware of.
Or that we're expressing.
But there is something else in that, so we come across as not needing anything and, come across as, well, you're doing okay. But then there are other times I can be with somebody or in a group and I need that connection, but unable to do it at that moment. And I think the other person's feeling something from me that I want, it's almost like, let me pull it out of you, pull it out of the other person. I think that's confusing for people because I'm not saying anything, but somehow internally it's coming out in a way that I need that connection.
Okay. Wow.
I've also had instances where I just kept pouring into a relationship and people around me, friends were like, I don't know why you are still trying. Like, why are you still going with this? Obviously, this is not healthy. You should move. And I'm just like, no, but this is redeemable. Like, it's not too late. Like, I care about this so much.
Eternal optimism.
I don't know. Yeah, eternal optimism, or just like, I know that this can turn around and I believe in the person and I believe in myself. And sometimes it has taken the form of like helping someone and helping them where it looks like I'm being used and maybe I am being used. That could manifest in a ton of different ways. And people are like, you're being used. Like, you should not. This person is taking advantage of you. You should not allow this. And I'm like, I don't see it like that. Like, I'm helping them. I'm doing this thing. It's worth trying. If I got more specific, there's like lots of variations on that, but I don't know.
Excellent. All right. How do your loved ones get to know you?
I feel like it's pretty easy to get to know us. As long as there is an open door for being vulnerable and deep, like, we'll go through it. So yeah, just making the room for spending quality time with me. Sorry, I don't want to speak for everyone.
So you will open up, is what you're saying, in a relationship. If someone wants to know you, someone wants to take time to understand you, you'll open up and talk. Yeah.
Well, we have to trust that person. Mm-hmm. And can they handle what we want to say? Can they handle the needs that we have, or the vulnerability, or going deep with what we have? For myself, I think, because my husband and I were talking about this, is that I love the dialogue, to have a dialogue. And what I need from him is respond to me. You know, if we're having this dialogue, if I'm sharing with you, acknowledge it. Acknowledge it with a nod, acknowledge it with I hear you, or acknowledge it with a question. You don't have to be me, but say something. And he's very different where he takes in information and processes it. And I might not hear the response for 10 minutes or the next day or whatever. And so we work hard at that. And sometimes I get frustrated and go, you need to say something, you know, respond to me just so that I know that I'm not crazy or that I'm not, you know, that you're understanding where I'm coming from.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think I build connection with loved ones through like really feeling like they're hearing me. Because I'm like, you say, how do loved ones get to know you? I'm like, you know, does that include like the lady on the park bench who looks friendly? She can get to know me.
Do loved ones include everyone?
But that willingness that's not scary and that they like lean into it, I think that helps build. Like not only leaning into it, but like the people I'm closest to, they remember the details about who I am and what's happened to me, and they can like recount that. That's something that I do for other people as well. And so when people do it for me, it feels like luxurious, actually. Like, wow, you remembered that was happening to me, or you remembered what, you know, about me. That's how it feels. So like in building connection and trust, I'm going to do that for other people. I can't help myself, but for people to do that to me, I think feels like great.
And that's not something, we're not scaring people out in the audience who are listening to this. It's like you are not asking for that to be as much as how much you give out to those in your relationship.
No, but if someone was shut down from that and they just are like turned off by that and they didn't lean in at all, they just kind of, I don't think it would end up developing as much.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said that, I have thought about my husband and one of my closest friends. Some of the ways that they express love is like gift giving. And they have gotten me things over the years that have been like so specific to my personality, or like I have mentioned something like off the cuff, not expecting anyone to get it for me, but they have remembered in like months down the road, like I received that. And it's almost like blows me over. Like, oh my goodness, like you noted that was important to me, and like you took the time to like, you know, make sure that I received that, and that like speaks volumes. And it's not necessarily like a gift. I mean, that could be like a spoken word that somebody, you know, says to me. But yeah, just that noting of something that is personal to you and somebody speaking that back to you, whether it's in a gift or
I keep notes. You know, if somebody gives me a note, I keep it because those are very meaningful for me. And sometimes when you say it to me face to face, some of it enters in and some of it kind of doesn't all come inside, you know, because I'm trying to process what you're saying. But if I see it in a note, that's like gas, get me going for a long time. And it doesn't have to be much. The point is, it doesn't have to be much that you give to us. You know, whether it's communication, whether it's talking, listening, whether it is asking, remembering a date, you know, remembering something about us really matters. And I think that energizes me.
And the expression of effort.
Yes.
Like gifts, as you were saying that, I was like, that's absolutely right. When people remember the really specific things, I did say that. But also like some of the best gifts that I've ever gotten were like not expensive. Like one of my friends for a birthday went, and it's like making me feel emotional just saying it. Like she went to a bunch of my friends from across different aspects of my life and had them write what they love about me. And she just printed it and put it in a jar and gave it to me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
I still have it, and it like makes me cry when I open it. I'm like, all these people like wrote this about me, and my friend took the effort and time to like collect that, and that's free. Like that, I'm like, oh, such a sap, but
that's awesome. Thank you so much.
That's the greatest. That people who know me, they know I don't need money and gift cards and like fancy things. But if you write me a really good note,
yes,
I'm like crying.
Yeah.
I haven't even opened the present yet. I'm just like, oh, you said this about me? Oh my God.
Yeah.
I have like boxes
forever.
and boxes.
Yes, you
of
do.
notes. And I'm like, I keep going through them. I'm going, I should like thin these out. I have so many. I can't throw them away.
Get rid of like an extra piece of furniture or something.
No,
Keep the notes.
I now take a picture of it and put it on my computer. So
Oh, yeah, in case anything happens.
In case anything happens, that's right.
You have the notes.
But those notes really matter because someone's sharing something to us, saying something affirmative, saying something that speaks value to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can tell if it's not genuine as well.
Or flattery.
Don't flatter me.
So how else do people get to know you? What are some things that can maybe say, ask? So we talk about time. Definitely that's important. Spending time asking questions about you. Are there any cues or helps you would give to those who are listening? Like, this is how you get to know me anyways. And you're not speaking for all twos. You're speaking for yourself. But there are plenty of people out there that will resonate with that.
I have a really close friend, and we went through our graduate studies together. And that friendship has developed in long, long stretches of hanging out together, like 8 hours. Like our family is coming together for 8 hours and we just talk the whole time. And maybe one time we get together and the person talks most of the time because there's something that's happening. And then the next time we come together, I'm talking. And then the next time, and over months and years, there are these series of long conversations that are going deep. And it's not that we met on Thursday and I talked for 30 minutes and they talked for 30 minutes and but that over time, we have these like series of deep conversations. And now that friend, like, she gives me so much, I give her so much, but it's not just like inch by inch reciprocal at every second, but there's a long arc of reciprocity and openness and deepness. And we talk about our work, we talk about our families, raising kids, things like that. That has led to what I feel is a deep connection coming out of grad school where there are a lot of superficial connections. And it's that willingness to not just talk about work or just talk about one aspect or like the place where you met, but opening up into broader pieces of yourself, sharing your past, meeting family members over the years, being invited to special events. Like that to me, it takes time to build that deep connection. And I have another friend who we actually schedule time. At this point, I have several friends who I schedule time with as a repeating thing on my calendar because they're so important to me and we don't live close to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's another way is like to stay in each other's minds. And those friendships and connections have continued. And it's over time, week by week, month by month, sharing and sharing and sharing the realness, like not superficial check-ins, real, deep, multi-layered across different aspects of life.
Yeah, thank you.
I have friends like you that I talk with someone once a month. We spend an hour on the phone just talking about our lives and sharing about the hard things as well as the dreams. And I have someone I go to lunch with once a month. And so with those kind of relationships, you just jump in. There's no standing at the end of the diving board deciding whether you want to jump or not. It's easier to jump in because you've cultivated that over and over again. And so you treasure those relationships.
Yeah, and I have a couple friends who, will ask me, how are you? And it's almost hard, I don't know if you guys find this as well, to say fine when you're not fine. You're like, oh, fine. It's hard to, be surfacey when you're really not. And I, mentioned before, vulnerability is a big thing for me. So if somebody who knows me well enough to know the things that I might be struggling with, if they take that step to be vulnerable in those areas and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, then it'll be like, verbal diarrhea, me too. And then I can feel freedom to burden them with the things that I'm struggling with and kind of share in that together.
because they want to hear it.
Right.
I think when you cultivate those relationships, they want to hear it, and being able to speak into it or just listen. Sometimes we just need someone to listen as we're trying to sort this out. Because for me, sometimes it's going through the forest to get to the clearing, because I'm still trying to figure out what I need and what's going on.
There's also through these long conversations, I think I find like deep parallels, like often with people who I grow very close to, and they differ by person, but like there's something that's deep about our experience or our way of seeing the world that we can use as an anchor point for having a relationship. That I don't have to just explain. I have to explain this, and you don't understand that. They just get some piece of you, and you can just rely on that as an anchor for the relationship.
And I do have like different people that, like I'm thinking of specific friends that I'm very vulnerable in this one area with them. They know the things that I struggle with. They don't necessarily know about these other things because we might not have those in common. But like I have, like you said, kind of like touch points or anchor points between my circle of friends where I can release each of those things that I struggle with and have somebody to talk to with those things about, even if it's not the entirety of all of my struggles.
I agree completely.
And I think I did that. In my younger years, I did that. I had one or two person that I would share everything with. And when they left and moved away, then I had to realize, that's a hard person to find. That's a treasure worth holding on to, where after that going, okay, there's some people that want to, that I can share this part with or this part with. I mean, it's wonderful when you can share everything about yourself and feel safe. But the other realizing that how much can people handle? How can they handle all this? And so then you kind of divvy it up among some of your other friends.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much to you for opening up as you did, and for being vulnerable, being honest, being funny, being yourselves. And really deeply appreciate that. So big hugs, high fives, and love to each of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for listening to the Type 2 panel, and we will get into coaching for the Type 2s in just a second. But before we do that, I wanted to remind you that you can like and subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you have your podcasts. And if you haven't left us a rating, especially on iTunes, it helps people find the show, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for joining us. If you've been on the whole journey through this now being our third season, or if you're just joining us, we're so glad you're here. And you can check out more of our work at theartofgrowth.org, where you have the portals to get to Joel for coaching or to Abby and I for couples coaching. And feel free to ask any questions there as well. So, Joel, before we go, we want to talk about coaching an Enneagram Type 2. With everything that they were talking about, what they need, how do you best recommend steps for the Type 2 to grow and develop as a person?
Yeah. And I'll talk about the sort of both how do you interact with the two, bring out the best in them and have a good relationship. And also, what are the steps twos can take to work on themselves, to improve, so that they can have better and more meaningful relationships. It's definitely the interest of the two. The two's focus is very relational. How do I engage in relationship? And the question is answered for the Type 2 by being helpful. So if I'm helpful to you, then you will welcome me into a relationship. The 2 has to actually flip that on its head. And because, again, each type has a lie, right? We've talked about this before. There's a lie that each type has, which is if I do this, then my need will be met. And the Type 2, when they are able to flip that and recognize that I'm loved as I am for who I am right in this moment, not for what I do, then they don't have to do for others in order to experience relationship. Their belief actually becomes actualized. If they start with the belief, then their actions will go alongside of that. So it's really important for twos to see if they can hold back a little bit from immediately going right to help as their go-to in order to enter a relationship. Now, when I say that, what I mean is not that the two needs to be less helpful. In fact, what I do in my coaching sessions with clients is I emphasize that there's a gift and there's a power to each type. And the only thing we do is the only reason why we work on the lower habits, the shadow self, is in order to release that type to fully be who they actually are and along with their gifts. So for the two, it would be, yes, you're made to help and you're amazing at it. And we want you to be even more amazing at it. This is not about restraining the two in any way. But it's about awareness of what's driving that. And if what's driving that is in order to be in a relationship, I need to serve you. I need to find a need. And if you don't have a need, I don't know exactly how to enter a relationship with you. Then it becomes a manipulative. It becomes a problem in relationship with other people. And so if the two can slow that down, can hold back a little bit, and also practice tuning in. There's a couple things that they can do is tune into, is this right now a personal need that I have, that I'm trying to meet by meeting the needs of other people? So do I have a need to be helped? Do I have a need to be loved? Am I hurting in some way? And that is difficult for people that tend to think of the world first and their needs versus their own. But that act of tuning in then allows the two to be more discerning about what the actual needs are of the world around it. And then when they go about moving in that freedom to then really meet the needs, it's really powerful. And it's precise. It's really targeted, aimed well, and delivered well. And it's not for the purpose of then being welcomed into a relationship or getting the approval from others that they have in fact been helpful. And twos don't need a whole lot. It's true. Twos are actually very self-reliant types, so they don't need a whole lot. But that's, I think, helpful for twos is to approach relationships that way, to see themselves. One of the mantras, I try to give mantras to each client that works for them. I mean, this is done in dialogue with them. But for the twos to know you are already loved, you are already welcomed into relationship with people. And for them to orient themselves back to their true self by saying, I already am loved, I'm already helpful, I'm already seen. And by doing so, that kind of settles the system a little bit, so it's not as nervous and anxious to be welcomed into a relationship and to feel connected with other people.
That's really good, because I feel like saying to the twos in my life that I'm in relationship with, what you bring to me is not why I'm here. I just want to be in relationship with you. Not what you can offer me, not because I'm getting some need met. Like, you are, not just you are enough, because that gets thrown out a lot. As important of a phrase it is, it can be thrown out as a cliche, but really, like, just being in relationship with you is what I'm looking for here. And I appreciate you as you are, not for what you can help me with.
Yeah, that's really good. I think the other thing too is for twos, what they can do, which is a very vulnerable act on their part, but it really works, is when they recognize that they have a need for approval. When they can tune into that need, I have a need for approval right now. If you can imagine the logic of this, their attention goes out to the world around it. They live in this social mirror. How do you see me? That means that then they don't have a strong sense of the self. Because they don't have a strong sense of the self, the need for feedback is really important. Positive feedback is super, super important for them. Right? And so the work of the two is really to develop more of that internal sense of self. Who am I? What are my desires? What are my dreams? What do I want to do? And slowing down and just doing that for 5 minutes a day, powerful for the two. Just slowing down enough to say, what do I want? So pulling away from people maybe a little bit, which is really difficult, but that's what actually strengthens the sense of the self, is who am I? What am I about? What do I want? And then doing a little something of self-care, just a little something strengthens the identity, strengthens the sense of the self outside of the world around it. And as they do so, then they can go back to the world, which is their natural way of going. And again, it's not as dependent upon approval. But here's what happens too, is when you're not quite there and you need the sense of approval, you need to know that you're being helpful. In some relationships, you can do this as a two. You can actually ask the question. Right? So I call that outing our type because we tend to hide our type. All of us do. Every one of the types, we hide a certain aspect of who we are because it feels vulnerable. So out that part of you by saying, I'm needing to know if this is helpful to you. Is this helpful? And the person may actually say yes, in fact, because some people genuinely, because they don't need approval or hardly any, never think to give it. And so if you ask, how am I doing? What do you think? Oftentimes people will say, including me, I just tend not to think that. But when a type 2 asks me, how do you think I'm doing? Am I being helpful? I'm absolutely happy to say, that's fantastic. What an incredible job you did. That was really meaningful to me. Thank you. And so those are just ways for us to get about life without having to be perfect. We're not going to ever get to that state of perfection, right? But it's on the way there. Sometimes we need little helps. Like, I do need to hear approval. I do need to hear feedback rather than going about it in sort of backdoor entrances. I'm just going to out the type. And you'd be surprised at how that actually works and really nourishes you and then satisfies you for a while. And twos can go for a long time, with just a little bit of approval. And so that leads into then how do others support type twos? Yeah. I mean, that's a really helpful thing is just to come out and say to the two, I see you. Thank you for your help. Here's how it helped me. This isn't patronizing. Patronizing would be, oh, you're fantastic, you're wonderful, blah, 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 which twos would suspect. And right. it's they don't buy that, right? They're smart. They're not dumb. They know when they're being patronized. So notice the work that they do, oftentimes doing things nobody else would do and nobody else wants to do. Twos are the first to sacrifice, and it's beautiful. And it should be something that the rest of us say, thank you so much for doing something most of us would never dare to do, never embarrass ourselves to do. Twos do not mind embarrassing themselves if it's going to serve somebody else or help somebody else. So we ought to be grateful and say, thank you. I notice that. I see that. So just the little that we can do in that space really helps twos out a whole lot. And then when a two is at times kind of trying to elicit that feedback from us, that we give grace and space to say, oh, I see what's happening. You need to be seen. I don't need to be seen. And it would drive me crazy ordinarily, but because that's where you are. It's not where I am. I need grace in my ways, so then I extend grace to you. And I think that really is the bridge we need to walk on that's helpful to one another in general, but specifically to the type 2 is to recognize, see them. Start with that. Start before you get right into it with a 2. Like, if you're an employer or you're a boss or you're, whatever, and you have a type 2 employee or you're the type 2 boss, when you come in to meet with that 2, if she or he is your boss or your employee, don't start with the agenda and hit that right away consistently, over and over again, day after day, week after week. Start with, how are you? And pause and listen. Because for them, it's about relationship and it's about being seen. That's so important.
Biggest motivator. You want to motivate your employee?
Absolutely. See them. See them. And that doesn't take a long time. We think of efficiencies in business world. That's really remarkably small. All it is just a few minutes. Type 2s don't demand a lot. They don't need a lot. But if you do that, that's very motivating. That's very helpful. And they feel seen and heard. And so the check-in, how are you? How are you doing?
And as you heard from our panelists, write them a note. They'll keep it. It means a lot to them.
Yes. Yeah, that was a really powerful insight that came up in the panel. Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, so thank you, twos out there. We appreciate all you do and all you are. So thank you so much for listening. If you are new to the Enneagram, you can take a free Enneagram test or instincts test at our website, www.theartofgrowth.org. You can follow us on Instagram at just Art of Growth. And you can reach out to us on our website if you're interested in individual coaching, group coaching, our upcoming certification, or our corporate trainings around the Enneagram and communication and optimizing team health. But for now, my friends, thank you for joining us. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. And have an amazing week. Grace and growth, my friends.